While many people believe Seiyu's popularity and looks are all the things they need to be successful, there's actually many other things that can completely change the outcome of a solo debut. In a way, there is a lot at stake for a debut, and if anything goes wrong, what was a promising debut can turn into a hellish endeavor from which it is really difficult to recover from. In the previous episode, you got a taste of some of the most successful solo debuts by male Seiyu. In this episode, I'll wrap up the topic by bringing you 3 additional successful solo debuts to analyze. Let's kick off this episode of Seiyu Lounge. Welcome to Seiyu Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and today's topic is Seiyu artists that prove that a perfect debut is possible. This is the final part of this feature that started on episode 56. Just like in the previous episode for all Seiyu artists mentioned, I'll be checking the elements that I consider that are at the core of most successful solo debuts. For reference, those elements were Seiyu being popular prior to their debut, having proven experience as a singer, mainly 2D music projects, and previous careers as solo artists or musical actors, embracing a simple, easy-listening music genre for their debut CD, looks or visuals meeting the industry's standards, acclaimed singing skills, solo debut with a good timing, good marketing strategy by the music label to promote said solo debut. Let's cover 3 other solo debuts made by male Seiyu between 2010 and 2019 that were met with a lot of success and in some cases have led to really successful careers up until now. Soma Saito. Just like Toshiki Masuda, Soma Saito was already pretty active working in several 2D music groups prior to making his solo debut. He was part of 7 2D groups and bands, with Solid's Medicode, Trigger and Twink being the high-profile projects he was showing his singing skills with. Often called a vocal chameleon by the Japanese media, fans, fellow Seiyu and even Visual Kei artists, in which Diaura's Kei is included, it was safe to say that everyone was anticipating his performances on a more personal capacity. Is a unique tenor with a solid 4 baritone technique and an insanely clean delivery. He was already well versed in singing in a higher key as well as going for deep, low notes. He could add a breathy touch to his performances, he could rap way before joining the Hypnosis Mic franchise later in the same year. He was a singer-songwriter on his free time. To top it all off, the Japanese media was incredibly focused prior to his solo debut on dubbing him a Seiyu with beautiful looks, or looks with which he could have easily been an idol at Johnny's. In case you don't know, Johnny's is Japan's biggest talent agency for idols. Just like the media, fans were on the same page regarding his looks. So with both looks and singing technique already highly regarded prior to his solo debut, it came as no surprise when Soma Saito's solo debut was announced in 2017. High music sensibility and knowledge, experience as a singer-songwriter, highly versatile as a singer and rapper, able to play guitar, with looks and singing technique regarded by almost everyone in Japan. Able to sing in Japanese and English. Although you and I do not know it, it may be safe to say that Soma Saito was highly coveted by music labels for a solo debut. After all, in 2017, he was the complete package and didn't really need any polishing from the get-go to be successful. Still, when he signed to Sakura Music, a sub-label of Sony Music Japan, in 2017, the music label wanted to make sure no one would miss Saito. Sakura Music's marketing team was betting its all in making sure he would be extremely successful. As a result, Saito was on variety and music-centric TV shows and almost all seiyuu and music magazines you can think of in Japan. There were ads on radio, publicity at anime stores, even flash performances at anime events. Soma Saito was everywhere. A couple of months after making his solo debut, Sakura Music made sure his solo debut wasn't an afterthought and got him the opportunity to perform the opening theme for Katsugeki Token Rambo. Yoake Wamada Hikari Tatsu Ame was released 3 months after his solo debut and is up until 2021 the only time he's performed music as a solo artist for anime or any other type of media. However, at that time it was a way for Sakura Music to make sure that all eyes were on him. The single was extremely successful, beating the sales record Saito had set for himself with Fish Story. It also brought new fans to his music, which is the focus for seiyuu artists when they feature music in anime. So it is safe to say that Sakura Music's strategy following up to Fish Story was successful. Since then, Saito is among the most successful solo artists among male seiyuu. He's a sales monster, always selling over 10,000 copies of his CDs. He consistently ranks within Oricon's top 10, and the media continuously raves about him now, not only about his looks and singing skills, but also about his singer-songwriter side that has, since 2018, taken over his solo career. There's a reason why he's often featured on Seiyuu Lounge's episodes whenever big milestones or records for male seiyuu artists are mentioned. There's a reason he has to be mentioned when it comes to talking about singers with impressive skill sets and talents. And that's because Soma Saito has managed in a relatively short span of time, 5 years, to have an extremely successful solo career and in some cases even rewrote the history books for male seiyuu artists. Like Mamoru Miyano and Toshiyuki Toyonaga, it's impossible to talk about male seiyuu music without mentioning his name. And at the core of his success is Sakura Music's all-in marketing strategy for his debut and a mix of Soma Saito's popularity, skills as a singer-songwriter, and consistency. Those took Saito to where he wanted to be, at the top. Let's check those elements that lead to a successful solo debut. Seiyuu being popular prior to the debut. He was a rising star with the Best Rookie Seiyuu award under his belt. Having proven experience as a singer, he was part of 7 2D music projects prior to his solo debut, embracing a simple, easy-listening music genre for his debut CD. He was performing pop and jazz. Looks and visuals meeting the industry's standards. Japanese media and fans agreed that he already had good looks prior to the solo debut. Still, like Toshiki Masuda, he did go on a diet to further meet those standards. Acclaimed singing skills. Saito was highly regarded for his versatility, tackling all music genres and all kinds of performances, making use of his tenor and faux baritone ranges. Prior to his solo debut, fans, media, fellow seiyuu and even Visual Kei rock artists, thanks to Fly Me Project, regarded him as a talented singer with lots of potential to grow and with a unique sensibility to music. Solo debut with a good timing. It wasn't perfect, as he went almost head-to-head with Tasuku Hatanaka. However, making a solo debut in June, following up with another single 3 months later, and featured in anime, ended up sealing the deal for Saito and ensuring his solo debut was successful despite the almost unfortunate overlapping of solo debuts by seiyuu in the summer of 2017. a good marketing strategy by the music label to promote said solo debut. With Sony Music Japan and Sakura Music's combined marketing teams, it was relatively easy to mitigate the split attention of the public with all the solo debuts in the summer of 2017. Sakura Music made sure Saito was everywhere and it worked. Variety and music-centric TV shows, almost all seiyuu and music magazines you can think of in Japan. Ads on the radio, publicity at animate stores, even flash performances at anime events. Soma Saito was everywhere. Just by checking all the things that were done to promote his solo debut, you can take a guess and say that his solo debut may have been one of the most expensive to prepare in the past decade. Sakura Music went all in to make sure Saito was successful. Shugo Nakamura. Now that we're on topic of singer-songwriters, I bring you Shugo Nakamura. You may be asking yourself if his solo debut was actually successful. Perhaps you're not as familiar with his music as you are with other seiyuu featured in this episode. But yeah, Shugo Nakamura had a near-flawless solo debut. Despite still not being a star among seiyuu, much due to the fact that Nakamura does not have that much work in anime, he sure has been pointed out as extremely gifted as a singer. He first impressed everyone by snatching the main role in the Idolmaster Saidem franchise back in 2014. We are talking about among a cast of 30 or so seiyuu back when the franchise started, and many of those much more popular than him, yet Nakamura stood out as the best singer. As the leader of Dramatic Stars, Nakamura showed that he not only is a versatile and reliable singer, but is also a relatively good singer that has a natural charisma that irradiates warmth to the viewer or listener. In a group that includes as well Taku Yashiro and the vocal powerhouse Yuma Uchida, Nakamura stood out. Then, in 2016, Nakamura joined the Tsukipro franchise and he further showed why he is one of the most exciting and talented singers among male seiyuu. He was hitting insanely high notes, harmonizing with other singers. He continued to shine in what was once again a group with genuinely talented singers, all with unique skill sets. Contrary to many of the seiyuu in this episode, this was the extent of his work in 2D music projects. Only 2 groups. However, if you listened to the songs he got to perform, you didn't need more to be impressed. And Lantis, the music label in charge of distributing the music from the Idolmaster Saidem franchise, was on top of what was happening. Shugo Nakamura was and still is incredibly talented as a singer. He could play the guitar, he's a singer-songwriter that, as a matter of fact, actually went from his native Okinawa to Tokyo just to be a musician, so he was more than willing of taking that step in his career. Those that had the pleasure of coming across songs he performed for Dramatic Stars and Quell were impressed with his versatility. The media also dubbed him a rising talent. Of course, Lantis offered him a contract to make a solo debut. In 2019, Shugo Nakamura made his solo debut with the single Here Comes the Sun. It was well received, selling over 8,000 copies and ranking at 11 on Oricon's weekly chart. Talk about a successful solo debut of a seiyuu that, for many, was still an unknown. Lantis set an interesting marketing strategy for Nakamura's solo debut. Shugo Nakamura wanted to showcase his singer-songwriter talents right off the bat, so Lantis made sure to highlight that in all press releases sent to media outlets. I remember reading the press release and being surprised that instead of highlighting Nakamura's experience in 2D music projects, the music label wanted to highlight that he was a singer-songwriter. That's interesting. Usually you'd want to leverage the fact that the seiyuu has previous experience in incredibly popular 2D music projects, but their focus was on Shugo Nakamura, the singer-songwriter. That alone set a different tone for his solo debut. People checking his music were aware that Nakamura had some control over what he was performing because he either composed the songs or wrote the lyrics to those. Then Lantis announced that Here Comes the Sun highlighted Shugo Nakamura's warm, welcoming vibe like the sun. I am paraphrasing because I've since deleted the press release I got, but it was really interesting once again to focus on selling his image and overall vibe alongside the music. Of course, they weren't lying. Nakamura does seem to irradiate happiness, with his beaming smile standing out as being incredibly warm. Fans point that out all the time, even before he had made his solo debut, so it made sense to highlight that. Then, when it came to promoting him, Lantis got him a couple of main covers in Seiyu and music magazines. This was the very first time for Nakamura, as he had never graced a main cover by himself before his solo debut. He was also on a couple of Anisong TV shows and got to perform live on various events and TV shows. Lantis wanted to put Nakamura almost everywhere because, contrary to many of the Seiyu they signed to their label, he wasn't that popular prior to his solo debut. So extra effort was put into making sure Nakamura was in the public eye, that many people got to listen to his music. As a result, Here Comes the Sun was featured as the ending theme for an anime series. Since then, Shugo Nakamura has constantly ranked within Oricon's top 20. All his CDs sell over 3,000 copies and he is regarded as one of the most talented singers among male Seiyu, counting with plenty of his songs featured in anime and TV series. Let's check those elements that lead to a successful solo debut. Seiyu being popular prior to the debut. Shugo Nakamura was not popular for his voice acting work, but rather known as a singer in 2D music projects. Having proven experience as a singer, he was literally the face of the Idolmaster Saidam franchise and dazzled with Quell in the Tsuki Pro franchise, embracing a simple, easy listening music genre for their debut CD. Acoustic pop rock. Looks or visuals meeting the industry's standards. He did not have those prior to making his solo debut. He had to go through a diet and skin treatments before he could meet those visual standards. Acclaimed singing skills. Pretty much everyone that listened to him, with Dramatic Stars or Quell, noticed he was a genuinely good singer. Solo debut with good timing. 2019 featured several solo debuts, so it was a bit crowded to begin with. Still, Lantis found a way to make his solo debut work. A good marketing strategy by the music label to promote said solo debut. Lantis focused on marketing Shugo Nakamura, the singer-songwriter that sings with a warmth that will capture your attention. Focus on print media and TV was noticeable, as well as making sure he was lending songs to anime series to bring more attention to him. Makoto Furukawa. Lastly, I bring you Makoto Furukawa. Just like Shugo Nakamura, Makoto Furukawa's solo debut is not talked enough, yet is one of the few male Seiyu that had a really successful solo debut in the past decade. Since early on in his career as a Seiyu, Furukawa has made sure to have a presence in 2D music projects. He first joined the Idolmaster Saidam franchise in 2014 as the center for the theatrical unit Cafe Parade. And as part of the group, Furukawa sure impressed with his singing skills. He showcased a powerful vibrato since day one, his mid-tones were incredibly robust, he was consistent in all performances and had a lot of energy going on. Then in 2015, he joined Sawara in the Tsuki Pro franchise. Although initially he did not sing for the group as the arrangements were towards having only Toshiki Toyonaga and Yuki Ono as the singers for the band, eventually Furukawa got some parts in the group's songs and he started to impress those that were still unfamiliar with his singing. Still in the same year, Furukawa joined Yumeiro Cast as a member of Genesis, and I believe it was thanks to it that he got to showcase just how impressive of a singer he is. With a lineup filled with skilled singers, Kenichi Suzumura, Daisuke Hirakawa, Soma Saito and Daiki Yamashita, Makoto Furukawa stood out with ease. He brought a lot of emotion to the spotlight, he was dramatic without exaggerating, and his vibrato was deep and intense as you had never listened to. Furukawa was showing what his singing skills were all about. For those listening to Furukawa's performances in all 2D groups he was a part of, you knew he had the skills, the emotion and comfort to be a solo artist. He showed he was passionate about singing, putting a lot of effort to sound as best as he could to deliver a performance that would dazzle you. To top it all off, he also loves reading and thus writing lyrics comes as a natural thing for him, something that he brought to his solo career. Lantis was aware of Furukawa's talents with Cafe Parade and Genesis, so it came as no surprise when he was announced as the latest seiyuu joining the music label, gearing up for a solo debut. And thus, Makoto Furukawa made his solo debut in 2018. However, contrary to all seiyuu in this episode, Furukawa did not choose to perform easy listening music. He chose to perform music he loves, music that represents him, and that's how the debut single, Miserable Masquerade, ended up being all about jazz music. That's an unconventional music genre for a solo debut, yet you could tell Furukawa was serious about his solo debut. Why is that? Because he didn't choose an easy way to bring in fans, he actually chose jazz music genre that very few people like. Performing the music he likes gave way for comfortable performances in which Furukawa got to shine while having fun. Lantis also focused on highlighting Furukawa's experience in 2D music projects and put him on the cover of several seiyuu magazines. He went to radio interviews and there were some promotions at Animate stores. The marketing for Furukawa's solo debut was rather subtle, yet Miserable Masquerade received a warm welcome, with it selling over 7,500 copies in its first week of sales. It was a successful solo debut that showed that talent can indeed be successful, and yes, jazz music can also work as a music genre for a solo debut. Since then, Furukawa has released music every year and set himself as one of the most talented and exciting solo artists among male seiyuu. He ranks consistently within Oricon's top 20 and with sales for each CD averaging 4,000 copies. In a way, Makoto Furukawa's solo debut gives me hope that solo debuts by male seiyuu can actually sound different between them. Not every single debut CD has to feature pop-rock songs. While sounding friendly is a tried and true strategy, fans also want seiyuu to show their identity as solo artists, a unique sound that makes them easily noticeable. And Furukawa showed that seiyuu can, indeed, do something that is different and it works. That mentality carried over to 2020's solo debut of Kotaro Nishiyama that instead of embracing pop rock, embraced city pop and jazz. And it was an equally successful solo debut. To wrap it all up, let's check those elements that lead to a successful solo debut. Seiyuu being popular prior to the debut. He was on the rise because of the anime One Punch Man. Having proven experience as a singer. He was part of Genesis, Cafe Parade, and Sawara. Embracing a simple, easy listening music genre for their debut CD. He did not do that. Furukawa went the complex route, choosing a niche music genre, jazz. Looks and visuals meeting the industry's standards. Did not have those prior to his solo debut. However, before the debut, Furukawa lost a drastic amount of weight, started to fix his teeth, and treated his skin. when the time came for him to make his solo debut, he was looking pretty different from what were his looks up until then. Acclaimed singing skills, he was regarded as a powerful, energetic baritone with a lot of technique. A solo debut with good timing. His solo debut was made hand in hand with the popularity of One Punch Man. A better timing was impossible for Furukawa. A good marketing strategy by the music label to promote said solo debut. Focusing on radio and print magazine features, plus highlighting his previous experience performing for several 2D music projects. Although a simple strategy that could have gone wrong, it was the one that resonated with the public as Miserable Masquerade went on to sell over 8,500 copies by the end of the month. As you can tell, successful solo debuts have a lot of different elements at their core, and not all successful solo debuts have all elements I mentioned on episode 55. However, it is safe to say that prior experience as a singer, especially for 2D music projects, plays a massive role into seiyuu actually getting their solo debuts. However, to be successful, other elements come into play. Popularity, experience, looks, the music genre that is chosen for the debut CD, the marketing efforts, and many more elements mixed and matched depending on the seiyuu can lead to pretty unique solo debuts, and when everything aligns, even lead to successful solo debuts. In one way or another, all the solo debuts I mentioned in these and in the previous episode either set or broke records, and many, if not all, influenced the solo debuts that followed them. After all, successful stories should be emulated, and music labels are always checking how the music industry adapts to the new artists, music genres, and even the marketing strategies used to promote those artists. While good, talented singers are not measured by sales numbers or by how important and resourceful their music labels are, truth is that their success is measured primarily by sales numbers, than by achievements seiyuu may have as artists. Additionally, the 6 seiyuu featured in these 2 episodes are the ones that not only managed to pull off a successful debut in the past decade, but also maintained that success over time. Out of all these seiyuu, Soma Saito, Yuma Uchida, and Toshiki Masuda are the most successful. Sales-wise, Soma Saito and Toshiki Masuda are heavyweights, always selling over 10,000 copies of their CDs. Additionally, Soma Saito holds the first week of sales record for male seiyuu with 24,854 copies sold. Yuma Uchida is the most active, releasing on average 2 CDs per year. Out of these seiyuu, Shotaway is the seiyuu that has more music featured in anime and TV series. As of late, Shugo Nakamura is synonymous of sports anime, featuring several of his songs as either opening or ending themes for anime of that genre. And Makoto Furukawa is the only male seiyuu that performs jazz music, being a breath of fresh air as well as an example of success while performing a music genre that very few people love. Although most, if not all, seiyuu mentioned had similar starting points, every single one of them ended up going their own route and having their own sound, and that alone is the reason why they continue to be successful and popular. So tell me, this time around I don't have a question for you, however, let's do an exercise. In the comments section, let me know if your favorite seiyuu artist has any of the elements that I considered to be a recipe for a successful solo debut. Don't worry, I will leave the list in the comments as a guide. Also, would you change anything about the solo debut of your favorite seiyuu artist? If you're listening to this episode on a podcast streaming platform, I welcome you to click on the link in the description and come on over to participate in this exercise. I look forward to reading your answers, and if there are enough replies, at least 6 different to the ones in this episode and the previous one, that fit the successful label, I will create a part 3 episode with your suggestions. And remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of Seiyu Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the Hand That Feeds HQ's weekly mail Seiyu and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. I'll return next week with another episode of Seiyu Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.